And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. And we are here with an all-star panel this morning, live from China. And the world is cutting off China is the topic today, as anti-Chinese propaganda is omnipresent. It's all around you 24/7. It's overwhelming. You can't avoid it. You can't escape it. It's in the news, books, entertainment, everywhere. You get bombarded with it. Some of it is very blatant, but most of it is very sophisticated and subtle. We are here with an amazing panel today, and welcome back to the show, Lee, from the Barrett channel, and congratulations on hitting 100,000 subscribers, I guess, in the last 24 hours.
Thank you very much, sir.
Daniel Dumbrill from the comforts of his fantastic pub there. We all will get into line when we get down there in Shenzhen. And we have Matt from JaYoe Nations back on board with the beautiful, fantastic view. And of course, with new lighting, Gweilo 60 is coming at you live.
Alex, that was a great intro, by the way. I loved your intro.
Well, we had a little bit of hiccups, everybody. If you did notice, some of our live chats were disabled. That is what happens when you try out new software. And not to worry, we're going to dive right into this. Do I see any hands that wants to start this off today? Anybody want to take this, or should I lead somebody into this? You guys want me to?
I think you should lead Daniel into it.
Daniel, tell us, Daniel, tell us what's going on in Hong Kong. Some interesting news rattled the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, the Hang Seng, yesterday, down by over 5%. Maybe you could share us.
Yeah, you know me on my Hong Kong topic, right? I think it actually ties in really nicely to what we're going to talk about, anyways, because I think China has tried to be pretty passive and pretty restrained with a lot of the ways they do things. And I think Beijing and the NPC talking about national security concerns in Hong Kong perhaps sends a signal that they're not gonna sit around anymore. They've been really restrained, despite how the media has tried to portray it. They've been very restrained in Hong Kong, but the international media has treated them as if they've never been restrained. They don't look at the fact that, in 1 week, more people are killed by U.S. police than the entire year of this. No protesters have been killed by police, right? And so they don't get any benefits for being restrained in terms of international reputation or anything like that. But there are people who on the streets who are suffering from that restraint, because people who disagree with these protesters, I think by now, a lot of, especially the people who follow us, have seen what happens to them. So that might signal them just taking a step back and saying, you know what, we're just going to do what's in our best interests. I haven't looked into, exactly what went on behind the barley tariffs. There's 60 or 80% barley tariffs on Australia also. I think they kind of framed it as having legitimate reasons, but it obviously looks like it is a retaliation also.
I know about that.
Yeah. So, lucky for us, most of our malts here at this brew pub, they come from New Zealand. The amount of barley that's been coming into China from Australia is absolutely massive. There's massive imports of barley. So this is going to hit them pretty big. And I have some more thoughts on that, but I'm going to be rambling a little bit too long about this odd kind of a fight between Australia and the U.S. and a little bit more about that. But I want to maybe let somebody else speak a bit more before I get into a bit more detail about that.
Daniel, out of conversation that happens. Sorry, that was sarcasm. Nobody got sarcasm there. Come on.
We just had you a bit
at that point.
We just had a bit garbled there, Matt. Can you repeat your point there, Matt?
Yeah,
it was just a bit garbled.
I was just being sarcastic. Daniel is known for drawing out a conversation, so it's one of my favorite things about you.
Well, I can keep going and going. That's why I got to stop. I got a lot to talk about today, but we got to give everybody a chance.
Yeah, we're switching over to Lee here.
Okay, I just want to jump in about the barley thing now. A lot of people have assumed it's because of Australia made noises about the investigation into the coronavirus. But if you look back a little bit more, I think it's more in retaliation that Australia put a fairly high tariff on steel coming from China. And there's also some sort of talk about that Australia may have been sort of dumping barley at under price. But I think the majority is a retaliation against the tariffs Australia put on Chinese steel. So that's my two penneth on it.
It was really cheap. The barley that was coming into China was extremely cheap. A lot of it was feed grade, but you had malters in China who would malt them, and then you'd get some of the small breweries using it and things like that. But very cheap. It's hard to imagine anybody was making much off of it.
Yeah, I think the Chinese authorities were accusing them of dumping the barley at less than what it was costing them to produce. That tied with the steel tariffs that they introduced. But I think because of the timing of it, it was assumed that it was done because of the noises Australia were making about investigations into coronavirus.
Yeah,
we're gonna switch over to Gweilo here for a second.
And I think you're still looking at that double standard where the mainstream media just spins it exactly how they want it. They do the timing as they want, and Australia was dumping their barley into China, and that's the bottom line. But because they can spin it whichever way they want, that's what they do. We've seen this over and over and over again, and the rhetoric is sort of ramping up over the last little while with the United States, the Trumponomics and all of this other stuff. Don't get me started on this. We've got a long show, so
we do.
I'll hand it off to don't get me going.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna take a bite here and just let everybody know why they should be sticking around for this show today, because there's lots to cover. Just want to say a special thanks to some of our recent guests on the show. Nico, she reached 20,000 subscribers. Thank you everyone for that. Yeah. And also Blondie in China, who was on Amy, who was on one of our recent shows and one of Barrett's shows. She reached 100,000 about 2 a.m. last night. Congratulations on that. And later in this show, Matt from JaYoe Nations has something very, very interesting to cover. Matt, I'm going to go to you, and you can just give us a brief 30 seconds on what it's going to be, and then we've put a special segment in the show for it. So maybe you can tell the audience about it.
Just really quick, we all live in China, so we have a unique perspective of this whole scenario right now. And one of the things that I've been seeing is how different countries react differently to the virus as it came out of China when we first heard about it. So I picked Korea and America, two vastly different reactions to the exact same problem, and created a comparison video. And it was very enlightening and very arduous to edit. So I'll be introducing that to you guys later.
And thank you for that, Matt. Just wanted to say also that, this topic is very sensitive. Lee and I have actually, Lee made a video about it earlier in the week that went on fire. And Gweilo, yesterday you did one on Trump. And today we're going to be talking about, a couple of these little rivals here. We got the good old Huawei and we got the Apple. And we're going to, chat with this forum. I brought a couple of snazzy charts to this discussion just to show you the impact if you think everyone is immune to this worldwide. No, economically, this could get pretty nasty pretty fast. So, Kurt, tell us about this video that you dropped on your channel yesterday. It's pretty flamboyant. Can you tell us about it?
Well, flamboyant is my middle name. The idea that the elections are coming up in the United States, and the Republicans and the Trumpians and the Trump administration has basically done a very poor job during their whole tenure type thing. But now that the rubber is hitting the road in the United States and elections are coming down really quickly, they have to blame somebody for their incompetence. And that's basically what that video yesterday was all about. Showing that China, with 1.4 billion people, had under 100,000 CV cases overall. You know what I mean? And now you've got the United States with, coming up on 100,000 people that died from the CV. So total mismanagement. Trade wars with China. Farmers going bankrupt. Businesses going out of business. The stock market dropping like a stone because of the CV. But you see, in the United States, the stock market dropped like a stone. In China, I think it went down 1.75%. You know what I mean? So the idea of government management has different. It's different, and Trump has mismanaged. But his biggest thing is that if he can blame somebody else, if he can blame China and the Chinese people for his incompetence and his administration's incompetence, maybe he can throw that blame on somebody else's shoulders and be reelected for another 4 years. He doesn't care if people die. He doesn't care if people go bankrupt. He only cares about his reelection. And basically that's what that whole video yesterday was about.
Well, thank you for sharing that with everyone. Just so everyone that's joining this panel today, if you could hit that like button, that really gets the algorithm rocking and rolling for the show. And just so you know, if you see comments coming across, super chats coming across, we highlight them all. I just want to say thank you to Caliber Wings, who had a super chat. And when we highlight them, Francisco Riviera, thank you very much for that. And we will put a link up for our QR code later here on our, I guess it's a WeChat Pay for your donations. So everybody knows, these 5 channels are actually streaming individually, and what happens is we have now simultaneously over about 2,160 people watching the show. This is by far the largest live streaming show on YouTube about China, for certain. That is for certain. So I'm going to get Wesley in our back-end studio here to pull up pull up a little chart. I think it's the first clip, and I just want to dive into this with Lee. Lee and I really like this topic about what's going on. This is Boeing, okay? Let's have a look at Boeing, and here's what I want to tell the viewers. you hear the current, we'll call it current administration and current governments around the world always talking about, let's bring back manufacturing. The Australians, the Canadians, the Brits, the Germans, all that. Let's bring it back from China. Let's bring it back from China. But let's have a look in detail here on where parts are made for Boeing. And if you can see there, the wingtips are made in South Korea. The wings are made in Japan. The central fuselage is made in Italy. The doors are made in France. The cargo access doors are made in Sweden, which is quite interesting. Wesley, can you bring us up on the second one there? We're going to go over the new 787 Dreamliner structure. Now, have a look at this. I mean, wingtips, Korea, the central wing box, Fuji, Japan, Kawasaki, Japan. Let's call it for what this is. This is not necessarily manufacturing in the U.S. This is what we call an assembly plant. And this is the big difference. People are getting very confused on what is manufacturing and what is an assembly plant. And if you see the reason behind the focus on pulling out Huawei, well, Huawei is quite interesting, and we're going to get to that. So, Wesley, can we go to slide 3 here? And I just want to show what happens when one of your biggest customers has a bad airplane. Well, look who's suffering here. Is it just America and Boeing? No, it's China Southern, it's Air China, it's China Eastern, it's Hainan Airlines. I mean, these jets are sitting on tarmacs because there's a problem with them. We don't hear about the economic impact on these airlines. No, we just hear about let's reduce our reliance on China. I'm now going to go to what Lee and I are going to dig into, and we're going to go to slide 5 here. It's on the mobile phones here. Let's look who the big players are in these markets. You've got Samsung, Huawei, and Apple. For all your viewers out there, yes, there is a bigger supplier than Apple on the market. You can see the two giants there, Samsung and Huawei. The shipments there, 296 million, 238 million. I mean, it's pretty astronomical. Okay, so Lee, we're going to jump into this, and let's have a look why it's so important. And slide, I guess that slide, which countries there, Wesley, the next one that if we can bring up. Yes, it's going to be the other slide to do right here. So which countries have banned Huawei? And if you can see real interesting here, what do you guys notice about this map? We've got Australia, we've got the United Kingdom, Canada, sort of, on the fence, we can say, and the United States pretty much not wanting to take part in this. And Lee, maybe you can share why that is.
Yeah, well, it's basically because these countries are all part of the Five Eyes consortium, and they tend to take the lead from the US. It seems as though the US does a lot of sort of arm twisting to these countries and threatens them with various sort of sanctions and tariffs if they don't sort of follow the US's lead. The British government did at one point say they're going to let Huawei into the network infrastructure, but that's sort of in doubt now after this coronavirus, because a lot of pressure has been put on the UK by America. They've sent delegations there. But in all of this, they've never, ever come up with any hard evidence to suggest that there has been this so-called spying going on. And if we look at the information which Edward Snowden uncovered, it was obvious that the US was spying on big time. They were installing backdoors in Cisco equipment left, right, and centre. They were listening into Angela Merkel of the Germans. So I just think, when you live in a glass house, don't throw stones, kind of thing. But just moving on to the Huawei thing, I mean, America here have not been sort of satisfied just banning Huawei equipment from their networks under national security, which they have every right to do. But, now they're sort of getting threatening to other countries, saying, look, if you supply, they're trying to stop other countries supplying primarily chips to Huawei. And the country that it's going to hit hardest, or the company is in Taiwan. It's TSMC, because they supply a large majority of the chips to Huawei. So actually, it's not America who will directly suffer here. It's actually Taiwan. So it's getting very, very complicated. This situation is with what America are doing here.
Matt, you want to jump in, Matt?
Well, I think that you have a situation where the world has relied on China for so long to propel them forward. I was thinking about this before. If you go even beyond Huawei and you go to you go to a Walmart in America, you go to a Meijer, you're buying cheap goods. Everybody there is benefiting from all of this opportunity to push their families forward and provide for people and socially move up the ladder. And it seems like there's this hate for China without an understanding of what buying from China enabled people to do. It's kind of interesting because literally people bought from China. People built factories in China. This was not something that it was being done at gunpoint. So I find it interesting that everybody's so aggressively against China when they created it. I mean, we all are part of the global puzzle that utilized China in order to propel us to where we are today. In many ways, a much better place than where we were before. And maybe a readjustment is necessary. Maybe you might want to ban Huawei for this reason or that. I mean, China has done many things to block Facebook and YouTube and create their own industries, and that's okay. It's okay. We're all an intricate puzzle, but it just seems like when you're lashing out and in irrational anger and frustration, much of it brought on by your own mismanagement of problems, it just comes off as petty. I don't know. That's just how I see it.
Yeah.
Daniel, do you want to add something to this?
Yeah, I mean, you do see this kind of a backlash, and it's almost like I was thinking of this yesterday. Everybody always talked about China being the sleeping giant. But actually, it was America who was sleeping, and it was America who was underestimating China. And now they've awoken. But unfortunately, the reaction leaves a lot to be desired. They don't use the American way to deal with this problem. They're going out, they're sending delegations all around the world trying to convince people or threaten people to not use Huawei. The latest one was Pompeo's remarks in Israel to an Israeli journalist. He made it quite clear. He says, if you want to deal with us, you need to really think about your relationships with China. So instead of spending money on competing the American way, they are spending money on blocking and threatening and shutting people down. And it's really ironic because it's the complete opposite of what people stereotypically think that would be a China action versus an American action. China's going out there and competing, and America's saying, no, we're going to block Huawei. America is arresting Huawei's daughter under this, because they've weaponized the USD, where they can basically go after a lot of people for dealing with countries that they don't like. DJI is the latest one that they think they're going to be pulling DJI from the US. When TikTok was getting famous, you had US senators warning people, just be careful about this. Maybe you guys shouldn't be using this. They're not spending money on competing. And it's just a really strange thing that we see going on right now.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Okay, I agree, and when you get the United States, doing the blame game and all this other stuff, and saying, well, we're going to bring our jobs back from China, not back from Cambodia, back from anywhere else, but back from China, just because China is a threat to them. They don't understand that the supply chain is what it is, and it's taken 20, 30 years to develop that. Different components that go into Ford vehicles or Boeing airplanes or trains, planes, and whatever are built in China. So to start saying that you're going to bring these jobs home, you're going to not buy, like Trump said, if we don't deal with China at all, we save $500 billion. Well, how long does it take to build the factories, get the tooling done properly to supply the United States or any of their Five Allies type thing with the products that China has been giving them for decades type thing? So the idea that they think that they can tool up and get this all going and be better for it, I think it's a pipe dream because there's just no possible way. And if they ever did that, a Ford vehicle would cost $100,000 instead of $30,000 because the cost would be astronomical. So everybody around the world that dealt with China and a lot of the U.S. allies would be dealing with China because of this. Would be buying their Ford vehicles for $30,000, while the Americans would be paying $100,000. It's unrealistic, is what it is. But when I've got you here, I've got a whole bunch of WeChat or Super Chat people I want to say thank you to, if that's okay with you guys.
Please do.
Chrissy Chen, Johnny Williams, Francisco Rivera, of course, Francisco, you the man, Ben Hao Zhang, Arthur Larson, Francisco Rivera again, Jesse Yan, Dustin Z. Zen, I think I said that right, Li Xing Li, and Tang Lu. Thank you guys very much for the super stickers and the super chats.
So I just want to add now to this interesting topic that we have today, and I'm quite disappointed in certain countries that should have sovereignty. Currently, right now in Canada, we have the chief financial officer of Huawei, Meng Wanzhou, under house arrest. And I find this quite extraordinary. I'm not sure if the viewers can kind of grasp what that means. That would basically mean almost the equivalent of Tim Cook of Apple sitting under house arrest, not in his native country, but somewhere around the world on an extradition treaty from another country that hasn't even committed a crime, just on charges that are pending extradition. Quite extraordinary, if you ask me. Wesley, if we could put up that recent little graph here, I just want to show people. What you always hear about this is everyone continues to scream about intellectual property and how dare they do that, and well. Let's have a look at who are the people that are going after patent applications in 2019. Well, isn't this interesting? We have Huawei sitting there leading the storm, Samsung, LG, and those. I mean, seeing everybody wants to take number one off the mantle there, so we can see. And another figure here, Wesley, if we could go on to the next slide, that would be greatly appreciated. And thank you, Tung Lui, for your super chat. We'll get to that. Let's have a look at the patent applications for the top 20. And this was 2018. Was trying to find the current 2019, but it's being updated. Almost a 4-to-1 ratio with China going after patents. So this is going to be quite extraordinary how these lawsuits and litigation are going to look from 2021 and 2022 forward. Who is going to be suing who here? And as I was chatting with Lee before about this whole patent issue, everybody keeps saying, but they stole intellectual property, they're stealing it, they're taking it. Listen, countries sue other countries, or I should say companies sue other companies in other parts of the world. The largest litigation for patents in the world are Americans suing Americans. That is a fact. So, Lee, you can take over on this one, and I will bring up another graph here and chart so we can have a look at that. Maybe you want to add to the story.
Yeah, so, okay, I the way I see it is that for the last sort of 20 or 30 years, generally the West have been the designers. They've registered the patents, and that, if you take the USA, you've got some of the biggest technology companies there. So when they create these designs, they then license them to all other countries around the world. And that brings in billions upon billions of dollars in licensing fees. And I think one of the areas where the USA now is starting to get nervous, because they've shifted all their manufacturing, they don't really have a manufacturing base anymore. So a lot of their income relies on all these licensing fees for patents, for designs of chips, technology, etc., etc. And that is now changing. So if you look at 5G technology, this sort of goes very closely with artificial intelligence. And China tend to be the leaders in this. As Alex has just says, that China are registering a huge amount of patents, 3 times more than the USA. And a lot of them are in these sort of AI and 5G areas. So what's going to happen over the coming years is all the other countries around the world are going to have to start paying these licensing fees to Chinese companies. So they're going to lose a huge amount of income. So, and then they've got nothing to fall back on because they've used this. They don't have manufacturing as such. They have assembly plants. So they're going to lose a huge amount of this patent revenue. And I think this is what's, causing that the USA to say, oh, we've got to hold China back. We can't let them get into this position because then we as the USA will struggle for income. So that's my take.
You know, what I found extraordinary when I was in Chongqing recently, walking in one of the new malls at the $3.9 billion complex called the Raffles Mall, and I saw American names everywhere. And that means they wanted a piece of this market of the 1.4 billion, rightfully so. So they have no problem selling their goods into the Chinese market, happily doing that. Wesley, can we pull up this next graph? I got a couple more graphs, and then I'm going to be handing this show over to you other guys here. So the top selling light-duty plug-in electric vehicles in the world. Somebody's definitely making their mark on the environment. Well done, China, on that one, and well done, Europe. So quite extraordinary. Wesley, if we could move on to the next slide here, if possible. What's at stake here? Well, let's have a look here. China is Germany's largest trading partner with 200 billion euros in bilateral trade per year. Chinese billionaire Li Shufu, largest single shareholder in Daimler with a 9.7 stake. Well, not only are they purchasing the automobiles, but they're investing in the companies. China's largest market for VW is Daimler and BMW. 34% of global sales were in China during January and November. So do you really want to annoy your customer, your investor, and probably some of the makers of some of the product that put this together? Do we have any more slides, Wesley? I'm not sure if I've got one more there. I'm not sure if we're out. So the key takeaway from this is today the European Union is the biggest exporter of passenger cars to China, accounting for 53.3% of the total China car imports by value. The other way around, China is the second main destination for EU-built passenger cars, 17.5% total value and exports. So, if you did join this earlier, you guys knew that we did cover Huawei, we covered Boeing. We saw that Boeing is pretty much what we would say, Lee. What would you say Boeing is?
Well, I think Boeing are going to be the sort of people who the company who suffers because, China's airline market is going to absolutely mushroom over the next 20 years, and I don't think China are going to be rushing to order Boeing planes. So I think Airbus in Europe are going to be the sort of biggest benefactor of this. I already see in the news that Europe is sort of starting to step back from the USA and Donald Trump. They're tending to distance themselves a bit more because I think, what probably Europe also realizes that where's the biggest consumer market in the world? It's not America anymore. America, the West consumers are a bit sort of saturated, that the companies have saturated the Western markets to some extent. So the big markets are China and then India. And I think the EU are starting to realize this and they are sort of stepping back from Trump. But as I say, I think Boeing are going to be the ones to suffer from the backlash from China. I see China very much playing the long game. It's like the tortoise and the hare. They don't rush into knee-jerk decisions like I see the USA doing. They'll bide their time and they'll strike when it suits them. And I think Boeing will be the target here.
I think
Jay,
that,
you want to come in?
Yep. Yeah. I think that it's so curious, especially with the title of this live stream being "The World is Cutting Off China." It's if you replaced America is cutting off the world, that would be way more apropos. I mean, that has been the MO of the administration for the last 3 years. It's been pull out of the Paris Climate Accords, pull out of all of these trade agreements, rebuild trade agreements to your own advantage. But it's been this sort of America first kind of thing. It's very suitable for the idea that they want to isolate. But then you come into a situation like this, and all of the sudden, oh no, we want to be part of, and we want to be the leaders, and we want to push China out, and it's like what is that saying where you're something called hens are calling back to roost or something. It's all of these moves that they have made, and I want to make sure to say this because it's really important. I am pro-America. I love America. I am an American. It's the reason that I'm saying these things, because I feel like we have been putting ourselves at such a disadvantage and cutting ourselves off from the world, and made this word globalism into this just the most rotten and vile word, when we all need it and we all feed from it and we all contribute to it. And so you have China, who has really pushed forward on adopting this globalist mindset, and every time America steps out of the Paris Climate Accords, they move up in their chair. Every time, the Belt and Road Initiative, I mean, China has kind of had carte blanche to network every country together for their own advantage, just like I think America should be doing. Any superpower should be wanting to connect the world as much as possible and have control. That's kind of like the capitalist mindset. But it seems like they're pulling back, and now they're like, no, we're the leaders now. And I think it's going to come back to haunt them, because they're not going to be able to pull in allies that they've been pushing out for this new, angry mob mentality. And I think it's going to come back to haunt them.
Kurt, you have a point here. You wanted to make a point on this as well.
Well, going back to what Lee was saying, where the United States is losing capital, losing money, and they're blaming China. But when you get into the idea of, and I'm going petrodollar here, guys, so just bear with me. So now, you see, the United States has had their grasp as an iron fist on the petrodollars for so many years. Everything had to be done in American currency, dealing with oil around the world for how many years? And now, see, China's starting to deal with places like Iran and Russia with RMB and rubles. You know what I mean? So this is one of the big things that could really hurt the United States financially, because they are no longer in control of everything. And I think when they feel it slipping away like they do, and what Matt says is true too. They're sort of, pulling back and segregating themselves from the rest of the world more. So they're not getting out there. They're not helping their neighbors. They're hindering their neighbors. They put steel tariffs on Canada. When 9/11 hit, and they were dropping all of their airplanes into places like New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, because, Canada's our friend. And Canadians said, yeah, okay. And then not a couple of years later, but then they turn around and for financial gain, they turn around and they ship on somebody like Canada that's been their ally in arms for forever. You see them breaking down those allies, and that's never happened before. I think this is Trumponomics. I think Trump is terrible for the United States. Somebody asked me a question yesterday on my thing. Says, what can Biden do better than Trump? And I had no answer. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things that I had no words, and that's not normal for me.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Kurt. Now, I just want to say that this channel and all our channels together for Let's Talk China has smashed through a new record here. If you're joining us through one of these 5 live stream platforms, we've topped over 3,300 simultaneous viewers at this time. That's quite extraordinary. That means people want to hear what is going on. And thank you very much for the super chats from my channel, Ken. Thank you for that. I just wanted to say, everybody, below in the description box, every one of these channels that you see in front of you, Gweilo 60, Barrett, Matt from JaYoe Nations, Daniel Dumbrill, and myself, Reporterfy Media, just click on that subscription. That's how you help us, by subscribing to our channels. And it looks like we're going to continue on with this chat. I wanted to bring up something that's kind of been rattling me here. It's that if you see a lot of these countries that are really hammering China, a publication called the Epoch Times ended up in my mother's mailbox last weekend, free, of course, for her to read, and it was quite the 8-page hit piece on China. So what rattles me is, why can't these countries all get along? If you've got a fantastic trading partner that's taking care of the manufacturing, shipping it to you, you put it together, you sell it for a bit more, everybody wins. And I'm not sure why we've got to cut off China, we've got to make them pay.
Because 100,000 people are gonna die. That's why.
It's going to be
And it's
more
their
than
fault.
100,000 people.
Sorry, Matt, maybe you can explain this a little bit. Let's back up a bit and explain that in a little bit more detail, please.
I mean, and it's true. If what has been said is true, that the virus came out of China, that is the match, the spark that lit this flame. But when you are dousing your house in gasoline and walking away while it burns down, is it the fault of the initial flame, or is it the fault of the fire? So you have this situation where there weren't actions taken quick enough. It's not. This wasn't done in a vacuum. So you can see what South Korea, you can see what Taiwan, you can see what New Zealand did, and how they protected their citizens. And then you see these outliers like the United States, and I'm using that as an example because I'm an American, and because I flew to America during the virus and flew back into China as America was imploding on itself. And you have all of these people that are dying. This is not. You can't blame Democrats. The blame game that is such a go-to for the Trump administration isn't available. It's not a tool in their arsenal. The only real solid blame that they can do is point to China and say it's all your fault. And when the massive spending that they've done, the massive unemployment, and the massive amount of death that's only going to increase on this second wave, it creates a powder keg where you have to divert that blame somewhere. You got to push it somewhere. And China is the enemy of choice for this because it diverts all attention away from themselves. So I really, it boggles my mind why people can't see, like, if somebody murdered 100,000 people and like their decisions created this exacerbation of death, you would be. People should be so crazy. I don't understand why people aren't more crazy about what their decisions have created.
So Matt, you're saying this is 100% deflection.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I believe that China, whoever caused this, there is obviously, I'm not saying that there's no blame to go around, but there's a huge blame to be when you look at the comparison between the countries that did a good job and the countries that didn't do a good job. And mind you, the countries that did a good job, they're not screaming to high heavens like the countries that it's like the guy that run in school that did something wrong and starts blaming everybody else.
Very
about
true.
It.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to say to our moderators on all our channels, I've seen that you're being great, but please let some of the comments come through, even if they're negative, as long as they don't use a lot of real nasty words. Let the comments flow. We're an open channel to address these topics. I don't want any censoring going on here unless it's absolutely necessary. Matt, I'm going to keep you on here because Wesley, how are we doing on this video here? Do you find it in the back? It's one of the videos that I sent you. Matt, maybe you can describe. We're going to pull up a video of something that you've been working on. And maybe you can explain to us, or do you want us to roll the video? What would you like us to do here?
Let me do a quick intro and I'll say go.
Okay.
This video is one of my longest. It's like an hour and a half long, but it's a very detailed summary of what I had seen, along with what Korea did and what America did during this virus. And it's very telling. And if you can kind of take the bias out, although I do kind of take hits at the administration, so I'm a little biased, I guess. But to be honest, it's incredible to see it from one to the other. And the reason I chose South Korea is because I've been there a few times. It's because it's very similar to America in a lot of ways. And they have two political parties, two strong political parties. They have, religious elements. They have a lot of things. And so I put this timeline together, and so you can go ahead and play the video. This is just a short clip I made that kind of shows this episode.
Let's have a look at this.
I've been wanting to talk about this
pretty
for a
amazing
long time,
video,
actually,
guys.
because honestly, it bugs the living shit out of me. 78,385 human beings in America died, as opposed to the equivalent population in South Korea. December 25th, 2019, December 31st, January 3rd, January 7th, 12th, 13th.
The U.S. has confirmed its first case of the Wuhan virus.
We have it totally under control. One person.
We only have 5 people. Hopefully everything's going to be great.
The Trump administration says it will now bar foreign nationals.
Well, we pretty much shut it down.
We flew into O'Hare Airport in Chicago.
This is why the whole concept of tests aren't necessarily great. We only have 11 cases, and they're all getting better.
We now have a name for the disease.
This is COVID-19, not COVID-1, folks. And so you would think the people charged with the World Health Organization facts and figures.
Well,
yeah.
Amazing.
I'm not sure why that
It goes
cut off
on and
the-
on. It goes
Sorry,
on and on.
I will try to get the rest of that bit up there, but
No,
you
it's okay.
tell us a little bit more about this, Matt. And I mean, I've managed to watch it from start to finish. Took you a while, huh?
Yeah, I had to watch hours. I had to watch so many hours of American politics. It's I think I lost some IQ points. I mean, it was a mess. But being able to compare the professionalism and the trusting of science and the making the right moves at the right time to just, it's so funny because he plays himself as the administration of no politics and draining the swamp. The stuff he did was so swampy, and his administration did the swampiest things by trying to put politics ahead of science in a lot of ways. It was a very, very good comparison. At least I thought. I have some people that are dissenting that opinion. Of course, I've received more hate in this virus.
Incredible.
My humdrum travel channel has ever received. But I think that like even right now, I calculated the situation now. So if you take now South Korea is 6. If you multiply the population of Korea by 6.3, it equals America's population. And so that's kind of an equalizer. If you were to multiply, today there's 1,645,000 cases, 97,640 deaths in America. If you compare that to Korea, if you multiplied Korea's death count by 6.3, that would kind of equalizing the number. You get 95,977, almost 100,000 more people died today in America because of why? Because what? Because they didn't want to wear masks? Well, the president isn't wearing a mask. I don't even fault Americans for being confused because the whole damn situation is so effing confusing because of the messaging. And it's like a total messaging F-up. And I don't, and to blame China for the messaging of the president to the people of his country is, it's just deflection, plain and simple. And there's a whole bunch of people, even in the comment section. I'm really sorry, guys. I really feel for a lot of people who are saying it's China, 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 China. It's a lot more than just that. And I was hoping that this video might be able to kind of shed some light on that, because I think it's important. We don't live in a vacuum. We live in a world with a lot of different people doing good things and bad things, and you can see the bad things in this quite easily.
Matt, we put a link of that video in our description box below there, so you guys don't have to go searching for it after the show. You'll be able to get a hold of it. I'm going to bring one comment, and then I'm going over to Daniel, because we had a super chat question, and I think it's Daniel's time to come in. So let me just tell you, to add to that story, Matt, what's quite interesting is when I came back from Chongqing, I came back probably about a week before all this really hit the fan, and Gweilo actually, instead of me going back to Nanning to meet Gweilo, Kurt actually came to Thailand. Now, here's the interesting point, is Thailand kept its borders open. It was one of the only countries that kept its borders open to China. Now, here's an interesting point here. and that's going to add something to help you out with your point, Matt, is America receives about 3 million Chinese tourists a year, okay? Thailand receives 12 million, okay? 4 times the amount of America. Currently in Thailand, 4,000 cases, 54 deaths.
Wow.
That kind of shows you who was prepared. And the measures that were put in here were very strict. I know people laugh about, wear masks, shouldn't wear masks. It's my rights. It's not my rights. I should be able to go out to the beach and stuff. I'll tell you here, at least in Thailand, it was pretty proactive. It was pretty quick. It was pretty swift. And I gotta take my hat off to Thailand, and well done. It's unfortunately, people did die, but not in these staggering numbers over there. And that is, there's something to be said about that. 12 million annual people come from China. It's the largest Chinese tourist market in the world here. It's 57% of Thailand's market, and they managed to come out of this pretty well, and everybody was pretty prepared over here. So that's going to square that off. And we are just hitting records here for this show, guys. Over 3,700 people watching the show. And we have to go to Daniel Dumbrill because this is Hong Kong coming up. And Wesley, if you could put up that last super chat, there was a question for Daniel. And I think this is the guy to definitely cover this. Daniel, tell us, you were talking earlier on in the program about Hong Kong with this kind of new maybe laws coming in. We did have a super chat that we will try to dig out. It was here earlier. Maybe I have it. It says, well done, guys. A question for Daniel. How would the HK Hong Kong public perceive the new anti-terror / anti-treason legislation tailored for Hong Kong? This is going over to you, Daniel.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, so it's quite interesting. I mean, nobody in their entire life goes through their life thinking, we need really strong national security laws. Nobody thinks about this. But after that happened, there are people in Hong Kong, Hong Kongers who are born in Hong Kong, you're not going to see them in the news, you're not going to hear about them, who were literally opening up bottles of wine, celebrating that national security concerns is finally on the table. This is when you really think about it. First of all, every developed nation has national security laws. The fact that Hong Kong existed in this vacuum where it was basically an international intelligence community hotspot on the doorstep of China, and it went on for this long is just remarkable. And it was in the Joint Declaration also. Article 23 for national security in Hong Kong is in the Joint Declaration. It's supposed to be launched, and it's finally here. But the thing is that the other Hong Kongers who are against it, or the other people who are against it, they have to ask themselves, why would anybody in their right mind be celebrating this? What's going on here? Nobody wants national security law. Like I said, you don't go around thinking this. And it's because the Hong Kong that these protesters are fighting for, the Hong Kong that you're afraid to speak up in and you lose your freedoms, is already there. And it's the people who disagree with the protesters. They are not allowed to speak up. I've had Hong Kongers who come over to Shenzhen and they say, I can finally speak my mind. I've had people who live in Hong Kong who I've helped move back to Hong Kong or move back to China because I have a cross-border car because they didn't feel safe. And these people are saying, finally, now you don't have this crap. If you think about Joshua Wong. So Joshua Wong, he had a Netflix documentary made about him. He was celebrated as the hero, the spokesperson for the Hong Kong protesters. He's flying over to Washington, D.C., and he's testifying in Congress, talking to them about how to contain China. This is absolutely it's treason. And then you have American senators coming over to Hong Kong, walking around the streets to participate with the protesters and talk to the rioters. Flip that around. You imagine if while the Hawaii independence protests were going on, which were going on during the same time and didn't get much coverage, what happened if a bunch of those guys flew over to Beijing and testified in front of the National People's Congress and said, we need to contain America, and also invited top CCP officials to go over to Hawaii and walk around the streets with the protesters? I think they're going to be in a little bit more than just, a little bit of trouble. So whatever you want to say about, oh my God, Hong Kong has a national security law now, or they're looking at implementing it. It is about time, and it's long overdue for a lot of people. It's gotten to that point where there are people begging for it. So how the international community will perceive it, of course, it will be sensationalized. Of course, people won't remind you that the U.S. has their own national security laws. But it's definitely something that needed to be done. There were a few other, there were a couple other super chat questions I had. I screenshotted them because they disappear after I know how to get them. Just really quickly, it's a little bit off topic. The Australian beef thing was, it was Australian barley. The tariffs, that was something that Lee
take
covered.
your time, Daniel. Take your time. This is your space, man. We're listening.
Sure.
Take your time.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Take your time.
Then there was another question from Arthur asking about whether Chinese companies are upset when other Chinese companies copy their product, like, for example, Fimi Pump and Osmo Pocket. Yeah, they do. There's litigation here too, but I think there's probably more of an understanding that you've got a certain period of time before somebody tries to copy you. Maybe that's true for anywhere. But wrapping up some of the other topics we were talking about, some of you guys were talking about why aren't people working together, and these countries like Canada, who are supposed to be independent, who are grabbing Meng Wanzhou for the U.S. And there's so much wrong with that case as well, which I won't get into too much details here. But we have a long history of that in Canada, of just kind of being America's lapdog. If you look back, and probably the most appalling one was in, I think it was 1993, when the RCMP caught Ali Mohammed, a top Al-Qaeda official at Vancouver Airport. And he made one quick call to the FBI, and the FBI said, "Oh, he's our asset, let him go." And then he went on to bomb embassies in the Middle East and kill dozens of people. It's like, we used to be proud growing up as Canadians. It's a little bit of ribbing. This isn't maybe something you should be proud of, but we used to say, and I'm sure you guys know, Alex, when we grew up, we used to say, we burnt down the White House, and we talk about the War of 1812. There's something
exactly.
That was something we used to be proud of. And now this is what we've been reduced to. And then you look at Australia. There was a really funny comedy piece from an Australian company where this guy's sitting in front of all his generals. And they're like, okay, so who's our biggest trading partner? China? Yeah. And then so this program they're proposing. So we are going to spend billions of dollars to protect our trade with China from China. And then they're like, yeah. And they're like, and you don't see anything odd with that? Like, no. China is Australia's neighbor, and by Australia aligning themselves with the U.S. like this, without realizing that the U.S. is not your friend. Just last week, Australia had to get diplomats to try to negotiate with America to release a shipment that was destined for Australia that America had seized under the Defense Act because it contained a PPE that they really needed. And Australia had to step in and say, guys, please, we really need this. And it's happened to countries. Barbados had the same thing. Barbados had their shipments seized in the U.S. They are not your friends. They're looking out for themselves. And to answer one of the other questions where we were talking about why is America doing this? Why can't we all just get along? I think it was Kirk that touched on it. The U.S. dollar is a big part of that. The U.S. dollar and their ability to control the world, they weaponize it, of course, which also has a lot of ironic stories built within it too. For example, they keep saying the WHO is a puppet of the Chinese government, while the IMF is an actual puppet of the American government. When Iran needed emergency funding during this COVID crisis, they were denied funding because of American influence. And we're seeing a shift now. I think this kind of a reaction comes from two places. One, the risk of the U.S. dollar losing its importance, both from the point of view of their ability to control the world with it. And obviously you can see now, unlike these other small countries who are struggling, America has the ability to just unlimited, print out U.S. dollars with limited short-term consequences at least. And it's just becoming a little bit too obvious that the U.S. hasn't been a good custodian of being the main international power. That doesn't necessarily mean that China needs to overtake them and become the next global superpower. But the idea that somebody could take away some of that and you could have two custodians, or you could have two people that are keeping each other honest instead of the U.S., I think it's about time. From what we can see, China is they're not sending soldiers and weapons overseas. They're sending, doctors, road builders. They're building ports and things like that. We haven't seen this from the U.S. So it's about time that we see some of the shift going on. And I think one of the other reasons they're panicking is because it's becoming a little bit obvious. These international countries should be saying, well, hold on a second. What is the U.S. actually doing? What have they been doing? Trump was the first person who was really honest about it in terms of Syria. He just came right out and he said, we're only going in if we can get the oil. And he was actually listing out, he said, how much money they could make from the oil every month. And I remember it was Assad who actually responded to that and said, we're really happy with Trump because this is the first time we have a U.S. president who's honest. He just says directly, we're coming for the oil. But I think too many people are starting to ask questions. And so the only thing they can do is go into hyperdrive with this anti-China propaganda. And they're putting all of their money behind this instead of actually spending it on just competing with them.
Daniel, that is a very good segment. Thank you very much for that. And to all the people that have donated by Super Chat, we will put up the QR code here in a few moments for the WeChat Pay. And if you do donate, please try to leave a comment in the comment box. So if you have a question, because WeChat Pay doesn't allow you to do that. I also kind of wanted to add to that. It's quite interesting that. As you were saying, you get these restrictions put in on trade. Well, not only did that happen, but the Senate now has decided in the United States to now go after publicly listed companies. So, by restricting the amount of money to be invested, there are more stock exchanges in the world. I trade them every day, and, the shift of money doesn't take long to move. And let's look back at, are we going to, sit back and say, well, okay, the U.S. Senate is saying, well, we're going to really restrict investment from Chinese corporations on publicly listed companies. Maybe it's not the time to go public. I mean, I was here with a friend of mine yesterday watching a show called Margin Call, which was going over the housing crisis with the mortgage-backed securities that just about annihilated the U.S. economy. Who comes in, saves the day? China. With a nice big fat loan to the Americans here. And I don't want to continue to go on this point, but if we're going to go down the road of blaming China, well, okay, yes, 2011, we have or 2008-9, we had a major housing crisis. We had our stock exchanges in 2000 were going absolutely bonkers. No regulation, take the throttle off, let anything list. Pets.com comes out at an evaluation of, $15 billion. You can then continue to dial back. You can go 87, and you can see all these things, No one's squeaky clean. China's not squeaky clean. America's not squeaky clean, of course. Enron, WorldCom, Tyco. I could go on and on and on, but I'm not going to. I'm going to pass this over to Gweilo 60, Kurt, and guys, we are approaching 4,000 viewers on this show, and thank you very much for the super chats. Kurt, I know you're ready to unload. Let's hear it.
Well, before I unload, I want to say thanks to a number of people that have been giving super chats and super stickers, and they should be recognized also because they help our channels as they donate. Amthman, Peter Song, and I'm gonna slay some of these names because it's in my nature. Rexiang Guo, thank you very much. As of course, Francisco Rivera, he's there all the time in Good Life, and Ellen Fang, Ellen EG60. I wonder if that's sort of a take back from Gweilo 60. I bet you she's either she's well, we're not going to say her age because that just wouldn't be right. Michelle Luo, 55, PRTN 55. I wonder how old she is. Oh, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's Reality Bites Jock. No, that one scares me. Jonathan Chong. And again, Francisco Rivera. Francisco Rivera is always really promoting my channel and helping it out. I really appreciate that. Adam Wu, greetings again from Taiwan. Gweilo, please come to Taiwan to visit me. We can make a video on Taiwan, and I will treat you to the best baijiu on earth. And Kim and is Mo Tai on a recent contest. Okay, well, actually, Adam, call me, man. I'll be there. Norman Town. We can go visit some people I don't like in Taiwan. It could be fun. Francisco Rivera again on speak. Bill. I live all you guys. I think he means I love you all you guys, especially Gweilo 60 attitude. As a Chinese Canadian, I really envy you. Enjoy your free life in China now. We are still far, far away, although we stuck at home for 2 months already. So the idea that people in China, everything is opened up, everything is great, and there's still people around the world that are sort of in lockdown. And I think we forget that in
Yes, we
China
do.
because things are opening up so much. Again, Francisco Rivera, Ben Hua Zhang, guys, does the U.S. or Western countries have national security laws against terrorists and national separatists? If the U.S. or Western countries have such laws, why can't China have them? Good. That's an excellent question. China does have them. They're implementing. They have them implemented, and basically, I think they're the same type of laws as the U.S., Canada, Australia have. It's just that because the Western world looks at China as a communist, and I'm going to say regime because they use those words very loosely in the West to sort of belittle the government in the countries that you see that. So they do have those laws. AC, a good show. Do you think will the hot summer weather bring a virus right down? I think what he's saying to his niece. Do you think the hot weather is going to kill a virus? No, I don't think so. I don't think that Trumponomics in the Western world is going to be the same as the Eastern world. It's not just going to miraculously disappear. It takes due diligence. It takes masks. It takes quarantines. It takes testing. It takes all of these things, and unless the United States adopts these things, I don't think that they're going to get out of it. There's going to be a second and a third wave, and it's going to go on and on until they understand that what China did, what South Korea did, what Taiwan did, is one of those things that they have to deal with it. And it goes on. Caps and Jay Graybeard. I have no idea. And Lisa Tao. And I could go on, Bill and Elaine 60 again and stuff. So I just like to thank all of these people. Alex, I'd like to go back. What was your initial question?
Yeah, that's good, Kurt. I'll take over here, and my thank you to Michael Lieber there and Nina Nini from my channel for your contribution. I want to also say thank you to some other people promoting our channel today. We have a quick little video here of some other content creators that have been on this show before, all based in China. They put a little bit of a video together. We have also got their links below on the channel, and once this video is over, I'm going to be going to Lee because we're going to dive into a couple more topics here. So Wesley, if we could bring this video up, and everyone, these guys and girls, I'm not sure who's all on this video, but below their links are also in there if you haven't subscribed to them. Let's have a look what they got.
Hey, what is up, guys? How's it going? If this is the first time seeing my face, hello, my name is Alex Absolute. I'm a British guy living here in Wenzhou, China. I've lived here for about 7 years now, and I make videos about all of the kind of things I get up to here. I guess there'll be a link either in the description or maybe in the chat box to the side there. You can come over, check my channel out. Remember to subscribe, share, like, all that kind of good stuff. And I make videos that are kind of a little bit like this.
People know me best as Gweilo 60. I'm a Canadian YouTuber out of Nanning, China. My daily activities are filming in this beautiful city. The culture, the food, the lifestyle, the weather, everything Nanning, China. I want to put Nanning on the map because Nanning is just a little city of just over 7 million people.
Hey everybody, my name is Jerry. I live here in Qingdao, China. I've been staying in this amazing country for the past 5 consecutive years. I make videos about China on a channel called This Is China. If you follow my channel, you don't need a visa or a passport to see this awesome country. Be sure to get yourself subscribed and don't miss out on anything.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm at the Guangzhou South High-Speed Station, and I'm on my way to Hong Kong, but I have no idea what it's going to be like. I'm always really skeptical of mainstream media, so I'm expecting it's going to be pretty chill for most of the city. Let's go. Let's just arrived at Hong Kong. Some beautiful graffiti for you. You don't support it, even though you're Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Hong Kong people.
Okay.
Born in Hong Kong. I grew up in Hong Kong.
Yeah, that's me. I'm Snarky Guy. I make uncarmudgeon-like videos, scenery, and videos all over southern China. I make videos about the real life here in China. And then I usually add my own uncut commentary to it.
I know you're gonna dig this.
3, 4.
If you're looking for some crazy, I'll tell you everybody's standing in a line for the water slide. You can come on over. We can take the roller coaster. And you know everybody's looking for a ride in the
My name is Alex, and I'm going to take you on a Chinese adventure like you've never seen before. This is Chongqing.
Hi, I'm Lee from the Barrett channel, a channel I run with my son Oliver. I'm originally from the UK. In the last 10 or 11 years, I've spent about 8 years in total here in China. First in Shanghai, later in Guangzhou, and now for the last 2 years I've lived permanently here in Shenzhen. Our channel covers all things China related, so check it out. So, mission accomplished. That's how you get a $2 haircut here in Gangsha, China.
What's up, guys? I'm Daniel from Canada. I moved to Shenzhen in 2008 with a little bit of time in between in Hong Kong, but most of the time here where I do business, including this brew pub, which I opened up 5 years ago. So until then, take care, and I look forward to speaking with you guys. Cheers.
Well, okay, thank you for that, Wesley, and thank you for all the other people that have joined our show. You guys won't believe it, but this show has been going on for about 3 months now.
Hey, I wasn't in that trailer. What happened?
Hey, okay, Matt. The reason I was about to say that the reason you took the words out of my mouth. The reason why is I was putting that together last night, and at the end of that video is when your video plays on talking about your documentary. But we definitely won't forget you for sure. So, Lee, who's going to be the loser here on this? I mean, you made a I guess what we would call it a brochure or what would we call it, like a community channel thing, and you said who's gonna be the winner. Do you know what I'm talking about? You know, what everybody
absolutely.
sees? Maybe just you can share us on that.
Yeah, just before we go into, I just want to thank a few names for the super chats and super stickers. So thank you, Arthur Larson, David Hodges, Coffee Lover, GM Lau, Hongling Lee, Jessica Yan, and Willie, Norman Tan, Paul Wang, Yipman, and Eric NG. If I forgot anybody, I apologize, but there are a lot coming in. So I personally think that medium to long term, America and consumers will be the losers here. I think it's very easy for people in Western countries to say, "Oh, I'm gonna boycott Chinese things," but that is almost impossible because even if it's not directly made in China because of the whole supply chain, the worldwide global supply chain, we have a situation where a lot of things contain something that is made in China. So it's almost impossible. I think another thing that will happen, although the Chinese authorities, the Chinese government don't take any direct action, I think the Chinese consumers will be swaying the market here. So about a week ago, I produced a video talking about Huawei. If anybody wants to go and have a look at that, it's called the USA are destroying Huawei. And I was absolutely, we got about 1,500, 2,000 comments in on that video. And I was absolutely stunned by the amount of commenters that were saying, I own an Apple phone, but I won't buy Apple again. I will buy Huawei. I want to support China. And I think we will see more and more of this. You have to remember China is the largest consumer market in the world. And if you piss off the Chinese, I think that is at your own peril. I think you will see the wrath of that. And I think the other thing, if you look at economies of a lot of these countries who are now sort of bashing China, they bring in billions of dollars from Chinese tourism. Chinese like to go abroad. They like to spend the money. Do you think really that Chinese, and also you've got to think about the amount of Chinese who pay top dollar to attend all these foreign top class universities, and you're already getting universities around the world saying, we're going to have a financial difficulty without the Chinese students. But I personally don't think if these countries keep bashing China the way they do, that Chinese citizens are going to be rushing out to these countries. I'm pretty sure for their holidays, for their education, they're going to be kind of looking at countries that are more sort of friendly towards China in the future. So I think be careful what you wish for is what I would say to some of these other countries.
Yeah, I think you saw that with when they put the THAAD missiles in South Korea, and the Chinese just decided, well, we no longer want to go there. That was a big hit to the South Korean economy, because all of those Chinese dollars that they relied on, the hotels, the air carriers, the restaurants, the tourist sites and stuff like that, sort of lost it in basically a split second because of that one decision. And they carry a lot of dollars in their pockets. I know when they go, I know lots of Chinese people, and they travel all over the world. And when they travel, they buy, they spend, they live it up more than what we do, because this travel thing is sort of new to them, and they don't hold back in their spending, and they spend more than other countries when they travel, and it helps those countries. Thailand, one of them, because as Alex said, 57% of all the tourists that go to Thailand are from China. Like, just think the economic boom when they're there, and the economic unboom when they're not.
Kurt, I want to add. Go ahead, Lee.
Sorry, I've noticed in the UK, when I go back to the UK, I don't live very far away from a couple of the universities that a lot of Chinese students go to. And not only do they pay top dollar for those university fees, but because they're generally wealthy Chinese, they spend in the high-end restaurants, they're buying all the designer goods in those countries. So I really think, if you piss off the Chinese people as a country, you're really going to feel the wrath of that from a financial point of view. And one more point I'd just like to make, Daniel was talking about how America used the dollar as a weapon, and I think that's something that's going to change. You're already seeing sort of electronic money in the form of WeChat, and especially Alipay. I think Alipay now is into 47 countries, and this is a financial system that completely bypasses the central banks. And I'm very aware that very shortly the Chinese government are going to launch the first sort of national electronic cryptocurrency, so to speak. Now, if they can get that to take hold, we're really going to see a change in the dominance of the dollar. I've noticed Rio Tinto, which is one of the largest mining companies in the world, last year they started issuing contracts in Chinese renminbi and not US dollars. So, is this the start of a bigger move away from the US dollar? And Alex can confer on this. While all this COVID's been going on, the bonds in the Chinese government market were affected very little.
Yeah.
That's a sign that investors have confidence in the Chinese economy. Where a lot of the other developing countries, their bonds took a hit, the Chinese bonds remain very stable. And I think Alex can probably talk a bit more about that because he's more in tune with this market than me.
Well, yeah, and thank you for that, Lee. I kind of want to cover, not just the stocks and the bond market, but also the real estate market. I'm consistently, reminded from my Western friends how many Chinese buy into the real estate markets, and they all come to me and they say, "Oh, look, they're trying to get their money out of China." Maybe some are, but you're buying properties because they don't want to invest in their own country. I have a take on this, and my take on this is the following. As any nation, United States or Australian or whatever, British as well, when you make some wealth, normally a British person would go down to the Côte d'Azur in the south of France and probably buy a nice little apartment on the promenade and look over the beautiful blue Mediterranean as an investment. As the Chinese do, they have investments as well. So the real estate prices get driven up. And I had a friend that been chatting with, and he's from Vancouver, and he says, it's really sad. He said, Alex, they come in and buy these markets and push these prices up. And I said, well, there are some winners here. And he says, how so? We as Canadians are losing. I said, well, is there sympathy for the person that purchased the house, for example, at $500,000 that has sold it for $6.5 million? Should we say to them, it's unfortunate that you had to sell your house for $6.5 million? Do we go around and say, well, even the people that have bought the properties for investment are still paying property taxes on it, which don't need garbage delivery or, garbage pickup or anything like that from their properties, and they're funding the school systems. So there's a lot of things that the Western media is not telling you about this. It's almost like it's a jealousy thing where a nation comes in, it invests. I mean, come on, man. I mean, this country of 1.4 billion has worked hard over the years, and it continues to work hard and help companies like Apple, for example. Apple makes an extraordinary amount of money from its mobile phones, and that money goes into the coffers of the company. Now, whether the company pays it back into dividends as shareholders or, it reinvests it back into the United States of America, that profit is still sitting in North America. So I'm of this understanding that everybody is winning on this. And why is that not happening? So anyway, I'm going to go over to who wants to take on this a little bit here. I think it was Matt, you wanted to do that. And just before we do that, I just wanted to say, everybody, subscribe to all these channels. It's an amazing show today. And, don't forget to hit the subscriber button, after the show. And we got a lot of content coming out. So, Matt, over to you. You wanted to continue to go on about your COVID
Yeah, I'll just show one more thing. There is one point I wanted to make to what you just said, Alex. Like,
please, yeah.
to be angry at China for giving people the leg up, but forgetting about the fact that China gave them the leg up, but hating China. It's sort of like the fact in America, the hating of the immigrants that coming over and working for farmers to make your crops and your produce cheaper. You know what I mean? You're like, they're the bad people. The products are cheaper. I like buying those products, but you can't quite join them together and figure out everything's interconnected, and the things, the cheap vegetables create the opportunity for savings, and that will be passed on down the line. Just a thought. But the thing I really wanted to show is that I have let's see if I can show you this. I have a website I made, and how do I share a screen?
And does this go along with your latest?
Yeah. This is. Okay. Sharing to StreamYard.
Yep, let's try it.
Yeah.
Give her a
Wesley
shot.
will help you out as soon as we get it up there. Yep. Let me just go. Okay, let's have a look. Can we take the super chat off the screen there, Wesley? And Matt, you're okay. Show us, Matt, what you got here.
So this is a website I made. It's on my JaYoe webpage. It basically goes through all of the statistics as of May 19th, and it's basically a rundown of the video I made, but also a very nice timeline that goes through the entire situation as I found it on my research. So if anybody was wondering about the sources for my hour-and-a-half video, it's all listed here very cleanly through this nice timeline. So it might be a nice thing for people, especially the whole, human transfer. The WHO never let us know about human transfer. Well, it's all right there in black and white and red and purple and green and stuff, so that you can see exactly how much time America had and South Korea had and everybody else had. So, and then you just load more. It's quite long, but I think it's an important thing to show. So, yeah, I just wanted to let you know that exists, and and it might be a useful tool for you guys. I spent a lot of time on it.
Obviously. Kurt, go ahead.
I add something to what Alex was saying, where you get the Chinese that are investing or trying to move their money out of China and all of this. As somebody that sort of lives in the world, not in Canada, not in China, but pretty well everywhere. I'm one of those people that invest in China also. I invest in Canada, I invest all over the place. And, I move money into China because I can get a better bang for my buck in China. So it's not just the Chinese people moving their money to other countries, it's other countries moving their money into China. So it works, it's like it's a world economy. And it's not just, those poor Chinese people, they have nothing to invest in. They have to move their money, or they have to take their money out and hide it over here. But this is stupid, But it's mainstream media is telling you that, and it's it's politicians from the West that are fueling the mainstream media and all of this stuff. It's just as an investor, as somebody that does this around the world, I just look at that and I shake my head and say, wow, it's not like that. But people that don't, and they don't understand it, actually eat this stuff up, and they say, oh, really? That's the way it is? You know what I mean? So that's just sort of on the tail end of Alex's comment there.
Well, thank you everybody for the super chats. Daniel, I've got a question for you. You're a business owner down in Shenzhen. Coming out of this CV situation, how are things going right now in Shenzhen? How are things going? You still have attachments to Canada, of course. Have you been talking to people back in Canada? Just give us maybe an overview what's going on with you and your channel, if you have a few moments.
Yeah, so the brew pub is starting to get back to normal. I'd say it's probably characteristic for this time of year. Everything's busy. I went for my haircut the other day, and the place was packed. I had to wait. I've got franchisees who are opening up more they're called mini taps. So they're using my brand, and I give them the license to use it. They've just opened up 2 new locations. They've got 3 new locations scouted out already that they're getting ready to open. So things are going pretty good. On the Canada side, I do export to Canada, and that's pretty much slowed down completely. Especially, I did polypropylene reusable shopping bags, and to compound the issue, all polypropylene material in China was reserved for PPE, so we couldn't even buy it. So now I've got a few clients in Canada who are coming back online, and I've got to switch to woven polypropylene. So woven polypropylene is still possible to get, but non-wovens, it's starting to get possible, but really, really expensive now. So yeah, the Canada business side has taken a bit of a hit, but things are starting to really pick up here and look pretty encouraging. It's going to be a tough time for everybody. A lot of places elsewhere. I've got family in the U.S. I was talking to my cousin a few days ago. Her mom has COVID-19, and she, my aunt, who I'm very close with, she almost didn't make it, but she's off the ventilator now. She's getting a bit better. Really? But my cousin, who I was speaking to, she hasn't been working for 2 months, and she doesn't know what they're going to do. And they had a terrible experience with the COVID-19 thing too. I think that might be a story. I know it's a little bit off topic, but you guys are just going to be blown away by this. So my aunt, she has vertigo, and when she first fell ill, she thought it was her vertigo. And then when she realized something was wrong and had difficulty breathing, she called the ambulance. The ambulance went up to her apartment without a stretcher. She had to walk to the ambulance. When she got in the ambulance, they said to her, "Don't lie down on the bed, it's dirty." So she had to sit on the steel bench. And then when she couldn't keep herself up anymore, she laid sideways on the bench, and they yelled at her. They said, "Don't do that. You're not allowed to do that." And then while she was in the hospital, I mean, she couldn't eat. They were going to give her a feeding tube. She was on the ventilator for a while. But they didn't do any contact tracing. They didn't go back and see who were you in contact with for the last 14 days. They did get one person, and that person was confirmed, also confirmed COVID case, but her symptoms were a little bit more mild. She had difficulty breathing, and they said to her, just stay at home. Nobody's checking up on her to make sure she doesn't leave. Nobody's figuring out how is she getting her groceries and all this stuff. Nothing. And you guys who are in China, this just blows you away. Like my cousin.
What city did that happen in?
When I was explaining to her how, it's in New Jersey. It's in New Jersey. I don't want to give the exact city because I don't know how much they want me to say about it. But and I will after she's out, she will talk to me. But the problem is she's not out yet, and she doesn't want this to go around, and then all of a sudden she gets really poor service in the hospital or something like that. Her life still relies on these people. And yeah, when I explained to my cousin that, you know, even the people who had contact have to go into a mandatory quarantine period for 14 days. And she said, so, you know, so she even asked me this question. She said, so confirmed COVID cases, they wouldn't let out? I said, of course not. Holy shit. Of course they wouldn't let them out. And it just absolutely blew me away. And so I think there's a long, I had chills. I had chills when she was telling me the story. There's more to it than that too. But like I said, she'll talk to me after, maybe on my channel too. But with that in mind, with how many people are out of work, it's going to be a long journey to recovery. And I don't like making the comparisons or anything like that in an instance when people are suffering like that. But for people who are doing business here, and the fact that I do have a business here, we are lucky that here is somewhat self-contained, that their economy is big enough and they've got enough domestic demand that we can keep kind of trucking along. You know, obviously exports are going to be impacted, and the world is inevitably connected, but China has the ability to bounce back a little bit better, not only because they have the virus under control for the time being, but because they have a very strong local economy. And China, it's important to note too that the Chinese doctors and the leaders, kind of medical leaders behind this, they're not afraid to say, they're outright saying, there could be a really big second wave. They're not doing this whole, it'll go away in the summer, it's just a flu or whatever, you know, that like we saw elsewhere. They're saying, be prepared. There's possibly a second wave coming. My son is back in school. He had to go for a COVID-19 test beforehand. When he's in school, they need to be one desk apart. They're given 3 free masks a day. At lunchtime, they have these plastic barriers between them so that they're, you know, they're not coughing or sneezing on other kids. It's just, you know,
scary.
Everything's back to normal with a lot of healthy caution.
Well, just a point about it coming back. They discovered a small amount of cases again in Wuhan. I think it was about 6 or 8, and within 24 hours or 48 hours discovering those cases, the local authorities says, right, we're going to test some people. And when they said some people, this was 11 million people, and they were going to do it in like a week or 10 days.
Within 10 days.
Yeah, you know,
10 days.
Just for 6 cases now, that's like, I bet there's some Western countries that haven't even managed to test 11 million cases in total, you know, and they're going to do it because they've had 6 new cases. So it just shows you how on top of the situation they really are here. And then I think it's in Jilin where they've had a bit of an outbreak, and they've locked that sort of place down big time, you know.
100 million people got locked down in there.
Yeah, you know,
extraordinary
and
the
they've
size.
done this in a matter of like 24 hours of these cases appearing in Jilin. They've put this massive lockdown again just to contain it, you know. So it does show you that they are super serious about it here compared to Western countries.
Can I jump in real quick?
Think about it. When we're... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to put a counterpoint to some of you guys, because I have a family full of medical professionals. They're all nurses. One works in a kidney transplant ward. One works on kids. And I talked to them yesterday, and I mean, they're in Michigan, Southeast Michigan, and things are under control. The caseload is not blowing up. The idea of this virus they seem to be having a pretty good handle on it, because America is full of really talented people. I mean, the government and its people are separate. So I actually felt really relieved hearing from some of those things. But when I asked them about contact tracing, just like you were saying, Daniel, I was like, yeah, you know, a friend of mine communicated with me, and she got a call to go into the hospital because she went to Starbucks and bought a coffee alongside somebody who sat next to somebody who was tested positive, and they brought her in for testing. And when I told that to my family, they were just completely and utterly gobsmacked at that could even be possible, you know. So it's in one aspect, you have such talent and such capability for treating this and professionalism and an American ingenuity, but in the other side, you have the lack of system that runs counter to managing this thing, and it puts both of them at odds. It doesn't matter how talented you are. If there's an overflow in the second wave, it's just
I think that's because your president is so desperate to get the economy back open, because he's worried about his election. And you know, to me, it's like, oh, forget people are dying, forget COVID spreading, because I've got to do everything in my power to win that next election. And
exactly,
that's just ridiculous.
I agree with that 100%. It's all about Donald Trump, and he doesn't give a rat's ass about anybody else. He is a narcissist from hell, and his policies are based on him and his golfing, and that's
I put that hour and a half video out, and it was like focused on the Trump administration's his rulings. And somebody commented back to me and said, I have a lot of Trump fans in my subscribers. I don't know how long they're going to last there, but they're sticking it out, some of them. And one of them actually said, you know, I really like your video. I really like the comparison. It's something that needs to be said, but I'm a Trump fan, and you got to stop talking about Trump. And I'm like, how do you take that man out of the story? It's impossible. You know, I feel for people, because they're so strong drinking that Kool-Aid. And I even saying that, I feel bad. I know people feel really strongly towards that guy, but I just don't understand it. It's just he's so bad.
So
what you said though too is about talent. You know, the talent is there, the knowledge is there. When the U.S. was helping when they had professionals who went out to West Africa to help with Ebola, they knew, and they were on top of that contact tracing thing. They did a really good job with that. They had I think it was from the American CDC. They were helping.
Yeah,
I didn't non-existent.
Yeah, I think the difference here is that the whole
in that regard.
Thing is being run by Trump and his sort of little surrounding group of right wingers, and they're not letting the show be run by the experts, the Faucis and things like that. You know, I think that's the big issue here.
I think they fired all of the experts, guys.
You know, I want to kind of add in on this here. You know, I don't necessarily consume my view of the world just on America. I also consume, you know, I view it on other nations in the world, and you know, there are other countries definitely outside the U.S. that have stumbled. And
the UK definitely.
You know, so you know, just to take a little bit off the side of the Americans here. I mean, you know, there are countries around the world. Brazil is really struggling right now and trying to get this under control.
Russia.
This is in Russia as well. I mean, the Belarusian president, I can't remember his name offhand, but he basically said if you can't see it, it's not there. So they kept they kept their all their bars and restaurants open. They're one of the only countries that didn't have a lockdown. But you know, I think this is not just confined to the United States. This is confined to a lot of nations in the world that I've focused on. You know, in the last couple of weeks, it shows there's a weakness here in preparation to a global pandemic. Maybe we can all learn from this. Maybe these nations can get stronger from it. Maybe we know how to prepare for that soon to come second wave. So I think, you know, there are a lot of good people in these countries. Sometimes it's the governments. I mean, you know, we just want to look at, you know, what China is doing. In China at this time is having their sessions meetings. And for all the people out there that don't understand what those are, I mean, this is where a lot of the big decisions are made over the next week or so. So, you know, to all our friends in other nations and all the people that are watching out there, you know, we hope that these governments, whether you're in Canada or in Australia, United Kingdom, US, we hope that they can all learn from this and move forward. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to do a round table here, and I'm going to start with Gweilo, then I'm going to Barrett, then I'm going to Daniel, then I'm going to Matt, and I'm going to be coming back around to me. Guys, Gweilo, let's tell us what in let's say 60 seconds what's going on, and thank you very much for donating your QR code on WeChat for donations. We do greatly appreciate that. Kurt, maybe you can tell us about what's going on with you in 60 seconds, and the clock has started.
I'll spend none of that money on brandier beer, guys. Oh, hey, check this out. Oh, yes. Discover Guangxi. This is what I was up to over the last week. I was out with
one more time, Kurt. One more time. Can you stand up one more time?
Oh yeah, look at that. You like that? And I went on this thing with Guangxi Radio International to the Vietnamese border and did a bunch of videotaping, and it's more touristy stuff than you're used to from me. And all I got was a T-shirt. Actually, they wined and dined us, and it was great. But I met a lot of good people, and we did a lot of good videos, and I saw a lot of neat stuff. You know, some of the off the road tourist places in Guangxi province that foreigners never see. They never even hear about. Most people in the rest of China don't even know these places exist. It's sort of like a secret that Guangxi people know about. So that's what I did, and I'll be putting out a number of these videos over the next week or two, let's say, and and maybe some political videos and some Gweilo rants, and you know me. But the thing is that this last week we had fun, and I got a new T-shirt.
Awesome,
and
Kurt.
That's about it.
All right, we're going to Lee, and a special hello to Ollie as well. Fantastic work, guys. 100,000 subscribers. Lee, take it away. 60 seconds, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'd just first of all like to thank all you guys out there for getting us past that 100K mark. We did make a video about it. It hasn't got a great deal of traction at the moment, so please go and have a look at it. The first minute is really kind of funny. We did a sort of bit of a cool thing with balloons there, so go and check that out. We have a couple of videos coming out this week. I'm working on one which I'm hoping will be a good one, to do with organ harvesting, as this is a subject that's really pushed a lot in our forum. So I'm going to address this one. And then tomorrow morning, me and Ollie have got our sort of 100K subscriber special live stream that we're going to do. And that's going to be a sort of open forum. It's going to be a question answer session. So please tune into that. I'd just like to say a massive thank you to everybody this morning who has contributed in Super Chat, Super Stickers. I do apologize if we haven't got round to them all, but it's been a busy stream this morning. So, yeah, but just a big thank you to everybody, and we'll march onwards and upwards to the next milestone. Thank you.
Okay, and next on the panel, we're going to Matt, JaYoe Nation. Sorry, Matt. Well,
you sound like my
it's
dad.
Yeah, okay. Hey, I got a lot to do. I got a lot to do here as the host, man. So come on, cut me some slack.
My dad, when he was alive, he used to say "JaYoe" like he was Norwegian,
Okay.
but I mean he's Polish. Like "JaYoe." I says "J-A, Dad. It's Ja. Come on now. Come on." Anyways, thanks everybody for watching. If you want to see me traveling around the world after this shit sort of settles down, then I will get my trike. It's in Kuala Lumpur right now. I'm headed south towards Singapore, then Indonesia, Australia, New Zealand on my world tour around the world. I'm actually kind of wondering if I should start the tour right when regulations get relaxed, because right now Malaysia's blocked off. But if I could like incorporate the quarantine jumps over land borders, that would be kind of an interesting take on the world, you know? But thank you so much, and subscribe if you get a chance at JaYoe. And yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for watching. And I had a good time with all you guys. And congratulations, Barrett, on your 100,000. That is a big one, man. That is a big one.
Thank you very
much.
I just want to say that I spent an hour and a half watching that video of yours, Matt, and it's
So did I.
one
Fantastic,
of the best
Matt.
produced
Thank you.
pieces I've ever seen. It's completely factual. If you haven't checked it out, guys, you need to check that out because it is absolutely superb. Very impressed.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So thanks, Matt. Daniel Dumbrill.
Hey, so I lost you guys for a second there. What are we're doing a final, like what's
60 seconds round up what you're up to this week, what's going on your channel, 60 seconds.
Okay, yeah, I can keep it simple, keep it quick. I've just got more interviews coming up. I've got a few people I want to speak to. I had an interview, interestingly, with a young protester in Hong Kong. She used to go to the protest, she used to support them, and then all of a sudden she kind of started looking at it saying, okay, guys, we've got a little bit of a problem with our movement here, particularly surrounding the violence. And then so we had a scheduled call, and then her side found out that she was going to be speaking to me, and then she got doxxed. People mentioned where she was working, how to find her. So she backed out. She's not going to do that anymore. And that tells you a lot. That tells you a lot about who is really able to speak up, who is not able to speak up, and what kinds of freedoms these people are saying that they're fighting for. But I do have another contact in Hong Kong who's less afraid to speak up. They are friends with her, but he's a foreigner. He isn't like a born and raised in Hong Kong. So it should still be interesting, but it would have been nice to speak to a born and raised Hong Konger about this issue. I've got a potential interview coming up this week with somebody who was on the ground for the '89 protests in Beijing. He covered the whole thing for a news agency. He was a fresh graduate, so that should be pretty interesting. And then I have a couple of authors, one of whom is actually a journalist in Washington, D.C. That's another interview coming up. I don't want to give away the name yet. So a lot of interviews, a little bit less of the kind of going out and vlogging, and more interviews coming from my side.
Well, Daniel, it's a pleasure to have you on the program today and have everyone on the program today. I'm going to take my 60 seconds and just tell you we do have some interesting news that just shot past my desk here. Seemingly last night at about 3 o'clock in the morning that United Airlines, and I'm just looking at the story now, there's about 15 carriers that are saying that they will be flying into China on June the 1st. So this is some interesting news that was just breaking last night. So that means it looks like we are going to probably get a chance to come to China. My ticket is definitely booked. The second that I'm allowed back in, I'm going back in. For my channel this week, I got a very touching video that I'm putting on my channel tomorrow. One of the individuals that was filmed a lot in the video has passed away since I made that video. So it's pretty close to my heart. It means a lot. And to his wonderful girlfriend, this will be her first time at viewing it as well. So that's one of my Chongqing videos. So just want to say to the panel once again, this was one heck of a show tonight. I appreciate everybody's support, and thank you to all the people that have donated during the show. We have a link for WeChat in our descriptions below. You click on that if you want to donate to the show, and we will definitely say thank you. Also to Ida Chow, thank you on to your comments there as well. I did want to read something quickly that I saw on Barrett's channel this week. It was an interesting comment from a man named Vic. He says, I'm a third-generation retired Canadian businessman who has vacationed extensively in the United States, but in 2014 spent half a year traveling through China. My eyes were opened all my life. The Western propaganda machine had me believing lies. Walking at night in downtown of major Chinese cities is safe, while trying that in Atlanta, Phoenix, Miami, or Los Angeles is, a life-threatening experience.
I'll just quickly add something there, Alex. I've seen a few comments that have said from people who've been very sort of negative towards China, and then they've actually come here and it's completely changed their mind, because they then stop believing in all the bullshit that the Western media pushes them, when they've seen it with their own eyes. And I think that's a really important takeaway.
Well, thank you for that, Lee.
And I think, Lee, that as our channels develop and get more subscribers, more people watching them, more people will understand that China isn't that scary beast that everybody thinks it is. It's
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
People here are innocent. The violent crime is basically non-existent. It's a safe place. It's a good place, and the beer is cheap and the weather is good. I love it here.
So what everybody can do is, even after this show is done, we will keep this up for a very, very limited time. As you know, we want more people interacting through this live show. As you know, we almost hit 4,000 people today. So that's we will keep the videos up for a little bit of time. You can hit that share button. That's how you're going to help these channels out, by sharing our videos and definitely subscribing to our channels. View our videos more. That helps us out. And subscribing to every one of these channels. We've got all the links below, even some of the people that haven't appeared on the show today. Right, I can tell you this, guys, right after this show, I'm going to be planning for next week's show. This has turned into pretty much a week's preparation as soon as the show's over. So congratulations to everybody on this show. Matt and Daniel, you guys are a stone's throw away from 100,000. So we're going to do our best to get you guys over that and take some hints from Lee. He seems to have done it in 11 months, so well done. And big shout out to Ollie for promoting the show yesterday as well. Thank you, Ollie, for that. I'm Alex from Reporterfy Media. Gweilo 60, Wesley, thank you very much for your help, and all the moderators, thank you again for that, and thank you for not actually throttling a lot of the comments. We like to keep it positive. We're not a negative show that wants to spew hate. We are open for conversations, and the moderators, thank you very much, and thank you very much to Gweilo's daughter. She's an integral part of the show as well. That's it from us here from Let's Talk China. Yes, YouTube's largest streaming show. Good day, good night, good afternoon. Take us out of here, Wesley. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Pickles are